Let's sit tall. Close the eyes. Become the witness. The witness of the breath. The witness of being. The witness of change. The witness of the truth. Whatever is in your perspective view, be a witness of that. And as you're witnessing, notice that you don't need to react. As you're paying attention to the breath or the physical sensations, to some deeper truth, notice how you can simply be with it without reacting. You can take enjoyment in the moment by way of peace and contentment. From this space of peace and contentment, draw the hands together in front of the heart. And we'll lift our voices in one Om, followed by the invocation mantras. If you know them, please join. Taking a breath in. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Ganana Antva Ganapati Gum Havamahe Kavin Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jyestarajam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata Anashrinvanuti Visidha Sadhanam Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhir Vajinivati Dhinama Vitriyavatu Ano Devo Brahataf Parvata Da Saraswati Ajata Gantu Yagnyam Havan Devi Jujushana Gritachi Shagman Novacha Mushati Shrinotu Vagdeviyai Namaha. Releasing the hands down, fluttering the eyes open. So in yoga there's all kinds of lists. There's a list for this. There's a list for that. Later today, Shambhuji will be offering you many lists. One list? Yeah. Two lists. There's a list for everything. Some of those lists are made of 3 things. Some are made of 5, some 6. Those generally tend to be the numbers, though. It's like 3, 5, or 6. Yeah. And so there are 3 doshas. The pure dosha, not talking about the blended doshas. But there are 3 basic doshas. There are 5 koshas. So the dosha is the particular combination of the elemental makeup that has created you. And each person is just a smidge different. So we have earth, water, fire, wind, and space. And those 5 elements come together in some unique formulation to give form and feature to each of us, to everything that is. The koshas are layers of existential experience. I had to get that word out. Layers of experience. And so it starts from the grossest possible experience, which is the Annamaya Kosha, which is the skin, the feeling, the muscle. It's the physicality of life. Pranamaya Kosha, which is the energetics of life. It's the breath. It's the prana that flows through the body. Manomaya Kosha, the mental sheath, the thinking aspect of life's experience. Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intellectual aspect of our experience. And then Anandamaya Kosha, which is the blissful sheath. And the blissful sheath is either the very human kind of happiness that we seek, which is temporary in nature and in some part of our suffering, versus spiritual bliss, the bliss of peace, the bliss of contentment. And these 5 layers are oftentimes talked about as if they were lampshades. So if you had a light bulb in the center and you had 5 lampshades over that light bulb, it would dim that light a little bit, right? It'd make that light a little bit hard to see, a little obscure. Well, that light within us is called Atman. And these 5 layers of experience, they shield, they cover, they disguise the Atman, they hide it from us. So 5 koshas. So many lists in yoga. The doshas and the koshas, in large part, influence our human experience. The koshas, by way of the elemental makeup that causes us to be vulnerable in particular ways and strong in particular ways, and that really lend themselves to a lot of imbalance. The koshas, which are the experiences that we have had, that have cultivated a mindset, a worldview, a self-view, a community view, a religious belief, a political stance. All of the koshas, the 5 koshas, are really, really, responsible for that. And so when we're talking about the formulation of the human experience by way of the doshas and the koshas, we come to recognize that there are lists of behaviors. There's lists of sufferings. There's lists of aggressions. And so today I wanted to talk about the 6 aggressors, sometimes 7. The 6 aggressors that we have a tendency to commit, to become, if we're not mindful about how we treat the doshas and the koshas, if we're not mindful about the way that we use our elemental balance, if we're not mindful about the way that we walk through the world and experience it, then we have a tendency to become like one or more of these 6 aggressors. The first one is the one who doles out poison. That's a pretty nasty aggressor. The one who gives poison. What is it to give poison? It's not to actually go buy arsenic and, no, it could be, yeah. But most oftentimes, that's not exactly what we're talking about when we say the poison giver. What we're talking about is the one who uses their tongue in such a way as to inflict continuous doubt, continuous harm. They continuously are looking for the negative, continuously looking for the harm, the harmfulness, not so that they can identify the harmfulness and adjudicate it, but so that they can marry the harmfulness and make it even more harmful. So the poison, the poison is that which steals the life away, steals the goodness away, steals the vitality. And I'm sure that everybody has had at least one person come to mind the moment that I said poison. Yeah? Anybody not have somebody come to mind? Were you the somebody? Yeah. You ever hear the term spewing poison? It's what it is. But it's not just our words that spew poison. It can also be our glance. It can just be our presence. The way that we allow it to be known that we're here, walking into a room and literally just stealing the energy from everybody else. by way of a mental energy that is superior, that is looking at everyone else as if they were inferior, that pushes people and their feelings out of the way, doesn't take them into consideration. That's a pretty intense topic, right? The poison spewer, or the poison giver. But it's true, and it's true on so many different levels. And every single day, this is something that we struggle with. Every day. When we're the one who gives the poison, there's a lot of things that we have to reconcile. We have to reconcile the fact that we used our energy, our words, our mind, our intellect, that we used our physical body and everything else that makes up what we think of as who we are. We used all of that in order to inflict harm. So we need to be very mindful. We talked about witnessing in class this morning. We need to be the witness. We need to be paying attention on purpose constantly to the things that we're saying. And, there's the old saying that if you don't want it said to you, don't say it. If you don't want it done to you, don't do it. We need to live by that. We need to live by that. So that we don't just throw out the first thing that comes along from an unbridled, angry place. Right? We need to be living by that motto. If you don't want it said to you, don't say it. And if you don't want it done to you, don't do it. Don't be the one who gives poison. Be the antidote to poison, right? Be the antidote to poison. Absolutely. Richard Simmons just passed. You all know who he was? Yeah. And quirky guy, such a quirky guy, I swear. But I can't even think of him without smiling. I can't think of him without a deep, deep, soulful appreciation for the antidote that he brought forward in the world. He was not the poison. No. He would have danced that right off. Be like Richard Simmons. That's going to be a new t-shirt. Be like Richard Simmons. Be the antidote to the poison. Don't be the poison. It's not that hard to be the antidote. All you need to do is be kind. And kindness comes natural to each and every one of us because kindness is part of your makeup. It's part of your soul. It's your spirit. It's what you are, It's not something that you have to learn how to do. It's not even something that you have to move other things out of the way for. Like some people say, well, I would love to be kind, but that person irritates me and this situation and what do I do here? I'm trying to be nice. I'm like, well, first of all, understand that nice and kind are not the same thing, right? Nice is not part of the antidote. It's actually part of the poison. You ever have somebody who was nice to you and you felt like they stuck a dagger in your heart? Because nice is part of the poison. So don't confuse those two. Kind is not nice. Kind is kind. Nice is usually a hidden agenda. The soul of yourself is automatically kind. It doesn't need to move anything out of its way because kindness is unbridled power. Kindness is so strong, so regal, so big that anger can't do away with it. Hate can't do away with it. Nothing can do away with it. Because it's always waiting to be expressed. In every moment, there's a deep inner voice within each one of us that is saying something to the effect of, just be kind. Just be kind. Forget that other silly stuff. It's all going to change anyway. So just be your true self. The true self, 10 things, right? So another list. The true self. The true self abides in the yamas and the niyas, abides in the 10 ethics, or the 2 lists of 5, right? So abides in non-violence, non-stealing, truthfulness, economy of energy, non-grasping, contentment, cleanliness, discipline, self-study, and devotion. The true self abides in those 10 ethical principles, and the individual who abides there knows the truth of kindness, knows the power of kindness. Does that make sense? Because to live realizing those 10 principles is to be kind. That's all it is to practice kindness, not niceties. Nope. Practice niceties if you have to until you can get to the point where you can practice genuine kindness. Just don't kiss butt. Right? Don't do that. Don't be the kind of nicety that is passive aggressive. Right? And as a matter of fact, there's nothing at all wrong with saying to an individual that you're having a disagreement with, in this moment, I would typically resort to saying something hurtful and unkind, but instead, I'm going to practice a nicety. And the nicety that I'm going to practice is I'm going to say out loud that I do not wish to harm you. So I am going to end this conversation right now, and I'm going to wish you well today, and I'm going to leave. And inside you might be saying, you don't mean that. You're not wishing them well. But you said it, and if you said it, you gave power to it. And if you say it enough, then maybe at some point you'll actually mean it. And then you'll start moving toward kindness versus a forced nicety. Does that make sense? Yeah. So don't be the poison spewer. Poison comes in so many different ways. The poison spewer can be the one who's constantly pointing the finger at things and reminding people of the dangers of this world, reminding people of the no goodness of people. You know, you ever know somebody like that where they're just constantly pointing out everything that's going wrong in the world, and they literally are feeding you into fear, you know? So don't be that person. Don't feed other people's fear. They have enough. And you have enough. And you know that there's danger in the world. Look, we don't get away from that. It's the reality of the human life, the human existence, the human world that we've created. And so instead of being the finger pointer who's always reminding everybody about all the things that can hurt them, be the one to remind them that their innermost self is pure light. Be the one to remind them that there is goodness. That was the thing about Richard Simmons, you know, is that he was always reminding us that there was goodness. Always. Always. So do that. And in doing so, you become an antidote. The second one is the one who sets fire to the house. The second aggressor. You ever set fire to a house? I went to school with somebody, and it's public knowledge because it was in the newspapers and everything like that. But this friend of mine, her brother, Dale, and his friend, and they were, I guess, the year after us, maybe 2 years ahead of us in school. And so they were in their senior year, I believe it was, and they became volunteer firemen. And they got bored. So they did what every bored volunteer fireman does, who's of the age of 18-ish. They set a house on fire. That was an old abandoned house, from what I understand. They got caught. They went to jail. Right? But that's not the kind of setting the house on fire that I'm talking about. It might be, maybe, you know. You ever burn love letters? Or belongings that you throw in the garbage? That's like setting a house on fire, right? But setting the house on fire is don't be the one who blows everything up. Don't sabotage. Setting a house on fire is sabotaging safety. Sanctuary is sabotaging the very place where people are meant to feel safe. So when you see somebody, sorry, my allergies today. When you see somebody who looks as if they are feeling safe, feeling content, feeling grounded, feeling good about themselves, feeling positive about the world, don't burn down their house. Don't tell them they're wrong. Don't tell them, yeah, that's just till the next bomb drops. You know? Don't be the one that steals that from them. Let them be safe. Let them experience the joy that is to be experienced. The happiness. You may know it's temporary, as everything in this realm is, but you don't have to tell them that. You don't have to nudge them and say, don't you be happy in this moment because you're going to be miserable in the next. So be miserable now. Don't burn down the abode of happiness. Even if you don't agree with it. And this is really important because this is a big issue in the world today. Somebody's happy. They have a different lifestyle than you do. You don't agree with their lifestyle. So now you want to burn their life down? No. You leave them alone. Let them have the happiness that they have. Let them have that as their home. Leave them alone. They're not hurting anybody. Maybe some people don't agree with that and they think that certain lifestyles are hurtful. That's a personal opinion, and opinions should stay out of other people's business. Out of other people's business. If you see that true harm is happening, that's something else. Then you seek to take right action. But you don't burn the house down simply because of your own insecurities. Does that make? Yeah? I have my little list to make sure I don't miss any of them. The third one is the one who attacks with deadly weapons. Now, I think every single one of us have done this where we have searched far and wide to the depths of ourselves to find the most hurtful, heinous thing that we can say to somebody that is like a sword beheading them. Don't use deadly weapons. Now, it might mean deadly weapons. It might actually mean, like don't pick up weapons against people. But more often, our weapons are vocal. Or our hands. Keep your hands to yourself. Keep your deadly words to yourself. But there's also an energetic to mental thinking too, Thinking a very, very wicked thought about another person. Wishing them ill will, wishing them harm in your mind creates a kind of a reality for you that you actually wish to inflict that kind of harm on somebody else. Right? So this idea, this aggressor, the one who uses deadly weapons, and you can start to see that there's a relationship between these. All four of these are very closely related to one another. There's subtle differences between them. When you're talking about the one who spews poison, that's a very kind of generic, you could fit all the other ones in there. Now we're talking about a particular, we're talking about when you look at yourself or another being and you aim with deadly intention. Like you're going to get this person. You're going to teach this person. You're going to make them pay. You're going to do something, say something, think something that is like taking, a bow and arrow and shooting the bow straight to their heart. But we're human beings, and this is the way that we behave from time to time. And if we're not mindful, we get caught up in it. If we're not training the doshas how to behave, the three, the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, which we'll talk more about later. But if we're not training them in how to behave, and what that means is be healthy. And the koshas, the 5 layers of experiential existence, if we're not mindful about how we are experiencing this life, then what happens is we become the poison maker and the poison spewer, and then we pick and choose which type of poison we're going to use today. And maybe it's the one with deadly force. And maybe it's the one that burns down the house. And maybe it's something else. But ultimately, it will be all of them. It will be all of them. You all look very somber. Should I lighten it up a little bit? Can you relate to what I'm saying? Yeah? Yeah. There's no shame in it. Okay?
There's a lot of ways to be unkind.
There's a lot of ways to be unkind. Absolutely. And that's what these lists are for, because it's like you say to somebody, don't be unkind. And that's like an umbrella. You know, that's an umbrella, and it's a very vague thing to say. Like, what do you mean? What are you relating as unkind? And specifically, what am I doing? And by the time you get to that part of the conversation, you might not even remember, you know, what to say. So you're just like, I don't know. It's just the way you behave sometimes. It's just not nice. Well, nice and kind aren't the same thing. So what exactly are you talking about? Give me an exact. Tell me exactly. And this is the way we have to pay attention to ourselves. When we say to ourselves, I do not wish to be an unkind person. I wish to be more kind. Now, okay, great. Well, I set this intention 3 months ago, Swamini. I said I wanted to be a kinder person, and I just don't feel like I'm getting there. I say, okay, well, what did you identify about yourself that was unkind? Well, was I supposed to? Well, how do you know what you're working with unless you identify it? You know? Well, I've just tried being nicer to everybody, but that's not the same. Stop that. Look inside of yourself. What kind of poison are you dishing out? Where are you lashing out? Where is it that you need to correct yourself so that you are in a greater alignment with the yamas and the niyamas? It doesn't matter what the other person is doing. You can't change them. You can point your finger all you want, but it's not going to make them change. It's not going to make them become kind. You have to turn inward in these practices. It's a necessity. There's no way around it. It's the hardest work that you will ever do in your life, is to look in the mirror and take responsibility for who you have been, who you are, and who you will become. Is the hardest thing in the world that you will ever do. Because the moment that you look in the mirror and you say to yourself, I take complete responsibility for who I have been in the past, who I am now, and who I am becoming, then that means that there's no more pointing fingers. There's no more pointing fingers. There's no more dishing out responsibility and lightening the burden that you're carrying. It's a radical kind of acceptance. And don't misunderstand me, it doesn't let anybody off the hook for harm that has been done in the past. It doesn't do that. It doesn't say, because I'm taking radical responsibility over myself, it doesn't alleviate the harms that were conditioned upon me by others in the past. That's not what it does. What it does, actually, is it takes power back. It takes my power back. It says that in spite of what I have lived through, in spite of what I have experienced, in spite of the poisons that have been spewed upon me by someone else who was suffering, in spite of that, I am going to choose me. I'm going to choose to empower the person that I am and the person that I am becoming, so that I am no longer their victim. I am no longer susceptible to them and to whatever they're going through. So it's really hard. It really is. But in the end, what's waiting for you? In the end of it all, what's waiting for you is strength, confidence, peace, a different kind of joy, contentment. And we all say, I want to be happy, right? Would you say, Shambhu, I want to be happy? Yeah. Would you want to be happy? Do you want to be happy, Kathy? Do you want to be happy? Anybody in here not want to be happy? You all want to be happy. This is the path to happiness. We think in the world today the path of happiness is just saying, I want to be happy, so I'm going to be happy. No, you have, and I have, we all have far too much baggage for that. Far too much. You can't be happy just because you say it. The unconditioned mind, and by unconditioned I mean not disciplined, the undisciplined mind cannot say something and make it be because it doesn't have the discipline to put it into place. It's only daydreaming. I want to be happy, so I will be happy. And then your friend calls, phone rings, answer the phone, hey, and then they say, do you know what happened? And then you get all psyched out and you're not happy. You're irritated because there's no discipline. There's no discipline to recognize that you don't have to take that on. You don't have to accept that gift that they're trying to give you. You don't have to get involved. You don't have to react the way you're reacting. You can be different. But only the disciplined mind can be different. The undisciplined mind, what we can call the unconditioned mind, and I mean conditioned as in strengthened, that mind is going to revert constantly back to the tendencies that it has. So this work is so important and powerful. We have to look and say, in what ways do I spew the poison? In what ways do I light the match? In what ways do I take deadly aim? In what ways? And then we need to shift. We need to change. It doesn't mean it's easy, and it doesn't mean that it's going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. You all know this already. You know that it takes time. And just because you don't see the effects in 24 hours, it's not Excedrin or Tylenol, where it goes away in an hour. That doesn't happen, right? It takes time, and it's a couple of steps forward and a couple of steps back. And so you need to also cultivate patience. Patience for the process of it. And compassion. Compassion for the self, because this is no easy thing. It's no small deal. This is a huge thing. A hard, hard path. They say yoga is not for the faint of heart. It's just not. The fourth one is anyone who plunders wealth and riches. Now, initially we might think that's anybody who goes out and wastes resources, right? And that could be one thing. There's lots of different levels that we can look at these from. But what would be another example of plundering wealth and riches? Would be to waste the teachings. Yeah. To waste the teachings. To neglect them. To deny them. Or to use them in such a way as to bolster your egoic wants and desires. Right? To plunder wealth and riches. Maybe the greatest plundering of wealth and riches is to outwardly deny the existence of the light within your own self, because that light, there is nothing more valuable. Nothing more precious than that light within you. And yet every time that we allow ourselves to partake in the type of karma that is based in violence, we plunder that. We deny it. We turn our back on it. So you can look at these from, kind of the practical level. Like, did you need the shopping spree? Did you need the 27th bar of chocolate? Was that money that could have been, or resource that could have been put to better use? Or you can look at it on a little bit of a loftier level. And you can say, what are these other things? What is my relationship with teachings? Do I just nod my head and listen and then ignore it? That's plundering. And what about the condition of the light within your very own self? Do you keep trying to put that light out, either knowingly or unknowingly? Shambhu, would you like to add anything?
Not yet.
Okay, very good. So to stop plundering riches and wealth, the first thing that we need to do is come into a deep appreciation. An appreciation and a reverence for the light within. We need to acknowledge to ourselves that that light is there. And it might be an argument with ourselves. The light is there. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. The part of the self that's saying no, it's not is the unhealthy ego. Recognize it. And relate to it like you would relate to a child who hurt his or herself. Like got a scraped knee or something. Or who was scared because of the thunder outside, right? You ever see a little kid when the thunder's out and they get all terrified? Relate to that part of your ego, the unhealthy part of your ego, like that scared little child. Use your compassionate voice to remind them to say, "You're mistaken. It's okay. I'm patient with you. You have to go through this denial. I know that. But I'm going to keep telling you that, yes, there is a light inside. Yes, it is true. And yes, it is you." There's a lot that can be said about working with the inner child. It's so important. Books have been written on it. Textbooks literally have been written on it. And it's not just a woman thing. There was a man one time who said to me, so like this inner child thing that you're talking about, that's just like a woman thing, right? It's like for women. Like, what? Were you ever 3? 4 or 5? You have an inner child. It doesn't matter what you are. You have an inner child. And your inner child is suffering. Because on some way, shape, or form, you have blamed, denied, or crucified it. Pushed it away. Tried to hide it. Rather than embrace it. Ask it what it needs. Do you ever ask yourself that? Which one of these do you do? When something is tumultuous in life, when you're going through some strain, some difficult situation, do you first say, I just need something. I need to get out of here. I need to go get chocolate. I need to go do this. Or do you do this one, number 2? Do you say, I'm having a reaction and I need something and I don't know what it is that I need. My mind is darting out, ice cream, pizza, get away. But are those things really what I need? What is it that I need? Child inside, can you tell me what I need? What do you need? Child inside, can you tell me what you need? And then maybe together we can find out what that need actually is. A or B? Have any of you done B? Good. I'm glad. Do it more. Just because you did it once doesn't mean that you got it. Which is silly of us, because that's what we think. We think we did it once, that's it. Been there, done that. Somebody said, and I always giggle, but it's just so true and it's so human. So I don't mean I'm not being judgmental about it. It's just that these statements that people make is so human That it's something that everybody has thought to say or has said themselves. And somebody said something to the effect of, I've already dealt with that stuff. It's resolved. I'm like, nothing is resolved. First of all, get that straight. We don't resolve things completely to the finish line. We don't do that. That's not part of our humanness. Our humanness is messy. It's chaos. It's layered, and it's layered lifetimes deep. So we never resolve that completely, It's always going to come back in some way, shape, or form. Get used to the idea. And when it shows up again, just be like, hey, hi. What do we need? What do you need? What do I need? What do we need? Let's see if we can figure this out. Don't just run. Don't just be the one who spoils the riches. Because another aspect of the riches is the process. The process of the rediscovery of the self. Whenever you feel in tune with yourself, it is a wealth. It is a value that cannot be it's just beyond description and words. Ultimately, we'll lose track of it again because we'll become caught up in the outside world, or the phone will ring, or something will irritate us. But in that moment when you just really felt at home, sit with that. Be with that. Don't be in a rush to get to the next thing. You're plundering the wealth of knowing yourself, of coming closer and closer. You ever do that? There's a little meme. No, actually it's a comedian. There's a Hindu woman. I don't know what her name is, but there's a meme from her show going around right now. And in there she says, and you Western people, there you are with your Lululemons, with your $200 pants with holes in them, with your expensive yoga mat, and you're rushing to yoga class. Did you see this comedian? She goes, you're rushing, and she's walking across the stage really fast. And then she goes the other way, and she's like, and you're rushing and rushing and rushing to get to yoga class. And she stops, and she says, first of all, if you're rushing to get to yoga, you're doing it wrong. Don't rush to get to yoga. Just go. Leave with plenty of time. But we do rush. We rush. Because there's something enticing about the rush. There's something enticing about the hurry. I'm going to be late. I got to get there. It's the adrenaline of it. And adrenaline is a drug. It is a drug. The greatest thing that you can do for yourself when you are at the end of class is sit there. For the first, I don't even know how many years teaching, and this was not something I ever said. It was not like a written rule, like how we have like some guidelines on the front door. It wasn't written down like that. It was never spoken. But nobody ever left my class before Shavasana. And there was a trend that was happening in a lot of other local yoga studios when I was over in Jersey, of people leaving before Shavasana. They get the workout, then they go. Nobody ever left my class before Shavasana. And it wasn't because I said nobody can leave. And then one day, like years in, this woman comes up to me and she goes, Sudha, and at that point it was Sudha, I would never ask this, but I really have this important interview. And this is how long the drive is. And if I leave here at this moment, at this time, I can get there in time for this interview. And it's for a job. And it's like, it's a job that she's been waiting, to interview for. She's like, so just this one time, could I please leave before Shavasana? And I looked at her and I said, of course. And she goes, oh, thank goodness. I was not going to come today. And then I was like, but I really want to go because I just really need the yoga class and just to be with the community. And she said, but I have to do this interview. And I looked at her and I said, of course you can. She goes, well, I know you don't like people to do. And I just looked at her and she said, well, I know you never told us that, but we know. So now I just say it, don't leave. Unless you have to, If you think that you have something that you need to get to, absolutely. Like in that situation, it was an interview that she had planned for. It was the only time that they gave her. It was something for her life, But if you're leaving before Shavasana so that you can get to Starbucks to get a coffee, stay. You know what I'm saying? If you're leaving the peacefulness of your own self to get to the next chaos, what on earth are you doing? Just stop it. Just stop. Like there is no place to go. In the wonderful words of Ani DeFranco, there is no there. There's only here, now. So let this be the place where you abide. And stop rushing through the quieter moments. Let them be. How many of you have said in, let's just say, the past 6 months, I wish I had a moment of peace? Anybody not say that? No, of course not. Well, you're the only one who's denying you a moment of peace is you. Because that rushing, that getting to the next moment of chaos, when all you have to do is stop. Just stop. Just close your eyes and go in. Even if it's only for a moment, a minute, 30 minutes, an hour. Maybe you're one of the ones who can do that for 6 hours. But you won't do it unless you start it. So you have to make the decision to not rush to the next chaos. Stay with the peacefulness. Sometimes thoughts permeate the mind, and those thoughts, we think they steal the peace from us. But if we don't indulge in the thoughts, then they can take nothing. We have to indulge in the thoughts. We have to say, oh, you're there again. I guess you're real. It's there, it's gone. It's there, it's gone. It's there, it's gone. And if it comes and you don't indulge in it, you don't even. Just be like, yeah, whatever. You're going to go away. You're going to come back again. You're going to go away. I'm not going to give you power because you're fleeting. You're transient. You come and you go. You come and you go. You come and you go. I want something that's consistent. And the only thing that is consistent is peace. Now, how the heck can peace be consistent when we live in a world of chaos? That doesn't sound true to the ego, because the ego will always say, that's not true. But yes, it is. All you have to do is look at the ocean, and you'll know the truth of the matter. The waves are the vrittis. Vrittis are the thoughts of the mind, the chaos. The chaos rises, and the chaos fades. The chaos rises, and the chaos fades. What does it always fade into? Peace. What does it always return to? The wave always returns to the ocean. The thought will always return to the peace of nothingness. The tumultuousness that one feels will always subside toward the peace within. And it may not be for long periods of time. It may only be for a couple of seconds here, a minute there. But it will, because the peace is just there. The peace is always there. The peace itself is never changed. The wave is the anomaly. And the wave is always changing. It's either rising or falling away. Right? Your anger is never the same twice, is it? Anybody ever have anger the same twice? I want to meet that person. I want to have a sit down with that person. I want to hear how they perceive that their anger was the same twice. The anger is never the same. It's 2 different waves, 3 different waves, 1 million different waves. You've had peace. Is it always the same? When you get into the depth of it, it's always the same. Always the same. The Buddhists call it nothingness. It's always the same. There's layers that we go through to get there, but once we're there, it's always the same. The fifth is one who trespasses. Now, this one I really appreciate. I'm just going to do a time check real quick. Very good. This one I really appreciate because it is akin to what I said in class earlier today, that there was some kind of research done years ago, and what they came out with at the end of it was 100% of everything will resolve itself without your input. Now, I used to put a little bit of icing on that, and I'd be like 99%. I'd give you 1%. I'd be like 99%. That way it's not such a great shock, But actually, the finding was 100% of everything will resolve itself without you. Boy, is that a humbling statement, So that means that in your life, potentially, you're sticking your nose 100% of the time into things you don't need to be sticking your nose into. Right? But we're not going to go that extreme. We're not going to become like the isolates who went and lived in a cave. We're not going to do that. We're going to walk through the world as householders. We're going to have relationships. We're going to have communications, many of which are going to be difficult. So how on earth do we not trespass into territories where we don't need to be? You have to cultivate discipline within yourself to not interject into situations where you're not needed more and more and more. So in other words, if you hear two people having a conversation, whether it's a joyful conversation or a bitter conversation, and you have an opinion, keep it to yourself. If you see someone struggling, having a very hard time, and you have an impulse to go fix them, don't fix them. You can't fix them. See if there's something you can offer them with no expectations attached. But don't try to fix them. That's a trespass. You're trespassing. Not only are you trespassing, but you're stealing. When you try to fix another human being, you're trespassing. You're inputting yourself where you don't belong. And number two, you're stealing from them the opportunity to heal themselves, which is the only person who can heal them to begin with. So don't steal and don't trespass. Don't interject where it's not necessary. Now, how do you know where it's not necessary? Well, that's your decision. That's your work. You have to figure that out. Each person in this room is a little bit different. Ideally, what I would suggest to you is any action taken to interject oneself into a situation that is coming from the ego is not necessary. If your action is not coming from a place of service and compassion, then limit it. Limit it. And if your service is coming from a place of expectation, limit it. Because service has no expectation in its healthiest state. Not even for a thank you. Whenever you find that you are acting, interjecting, getting involved, trespassing, for the benefit of an unhealthy ego, limit those interactions. When you're arguing with somebody and you're getting ready to spew poison and take that deadly aim to what you know will hurt them deeply, you're trespassing. Recognize that. You're trespassing on someone else's heart. Think about that. And remember, don't say what I don't want someone to say to me. Don't do what I don't want someone else to do to me. don't trespass. Don't do that. Don't leave footprints or boot prints on someone else's heart. They're already healing from traumas that you have no idea about, and you don't know how their healing is going, how difficult it is, how easy it is, which it's never easy, but you just don't know. But the one thing that you can know is that they're suffering, and that you don't need to add to it. You don't need to go there. You don't need to trespass in that way. The more that we go through these aggressors, the more I'm reminded of, in yoga, there's the concept of, the necessity of aloneness. The necessity of aloneness. That as we walk this spiritual path, we walk alone. We have Sangha, but we still acknowledge that we walk this path alone, because the work that we must do is the work that we alone must do. And if there's a blessing or a grace, or by good chance, we have a community of like-minded people who are doing the same hard work, and we can derive inspiration from them, we can derive energy as a community together, that's wonderful. But ultimately, I'm the only one who can look in the mirror and take complete responsibility for me. Nobody else can. It doesn't work that way. So anytime that we try to take over the life of another person, to take over the path of another person, it's trespassing. And that's a very tricky aggressor, because the trespasser is full of justifications, full of them. So full of them. Well, I can tell you what you have to do and what you don't have to do because I have some book backing me, because I have a Bible backing me, because I have whatever, I have the law backing me. I can tell you. What am I doing? If I'm so busy telling you and pointing the finger at you, what am I doing with me? I'm ignoring me. Yeah. So the more that an individual is lashing out in any of these ways, the less they're looking in. They're in absolute avoidance of their own work. So don't be that person either. Don't be the one who looks out when there's a whole plethora of light to look into. I can guarantee you that when you do look inward, after you get over the initial fear of it all, and that's the fear, that attachment of who I think I am and who will I be if I look into the light and if I don't have these stories or these things to attach to anymore. Once you're over the fear of that letting go, the only thing that's waiting for you there is joy, peace, a deep sense of knowing your purpose in this life, and a deep willingness to commit to it without fear or with less fear. Most of the time right now, people don't commit to their inner calling because they're afraid. They're afraid of what they'll look like. They're afraid of what their friends will think of them. They're afraid of what their family's going to say. They're afraid of all the external influences. The more that you abide in the light that exists within you, the less afraid of the outside world you are. Because you realize that outside world is not the truth. It's a bunch of chaos. The truth is something else entirely. There's a reality to it that is a human-made reality. So there's a subjective truth to it. But it's like twins. They did the research on the twins, how twins raised by the same parents, identical twins, could have absolutely, completely different experiences in the same household. They found that was really interesting about non-twin siblings. So then they extended the research to twins, and they were like, you would think that identical twins would have similar experiences with the parents and whatnot. No, so divergent. So divergent. So if twins have subjective realities, 8 billion people, this man-made world is so subjective. There's no truth out there because there's nothing that we can all agree to. Our fear takes us away. Our desires take us away. Our hate takes us away. And the day when we stop playing into those tendencies and we decide collectively to gather together, not to sound cliche, but in the light, then we'll know. We'll know what reality actually is and what the truth actually is. Until then, we're just being led around. One little lie after another. One little misstatement, misunderstanding. One little, not even a half-truth after another. And we invest so much in that. And the more that we invest in those things like that, the less we're investing in here. The sixth one is the one who takes hostages. Don't be your own hostage. And don't take other people as a hostage. Don't kidnap people. You've changed in your life, other people will change also. It would dismay me if I met somebody today who I haven't seen since I was 15, and they still treated me as if I was that person. Or when I was 20, or in a drunken stupor, it would just diminish. If they kidnapped me at that moment in time when I was not a great self, where I was making poor decisions, and now that is who I am to them. Anybody come to your mind that you have either done that to, or who has done that to you? Did it feel good when they tried to freeze you in that moment? And if it didn't feel good to you, you can imagine it doesn't feel good to them either. But even maybe more important than it not feeling so great to them, because they might not even know you've done it, is that the harm it does to you to kidnap somebody else, to limit your perspective, to say to yourself in some way, shape, or form, this person is not capable of growth, and because they're not capable of growth, neither am I. So now I can give up, and I can just indulge in the human-made world and forget all this light bullshit. Right? Kid you not, we are the great saboteurs. We sabotage ourselves all the time. So when you hold somebody else hostage, you're actually holding yourself hostage. And the damage that does to one's own self is immense. So next time that you see somebody who you would normally say something like that about to yourself or out loud, this time you see them out loud, perhaps identify something that you see that is different. Either to yourself or to them if that's comfortable. Something you see that is different. And don't let it be passive-aggressive insult. Let it be something positive. Oh, you've changed. Maybe it's your hair. Maybe it's your outfit. Maybe it's you're smiling today. I don't know, But acknowledge the change. By acknowledging the change, you unlock the chains. Because change is the only constant in this human-made world. Briefly, sometimes they add a seventh, jealousy. Y'all know what that is, right? Yeah. Don't be jealous. Don't be envious. Appreciative joy. In the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, he says, When you see somebody else who has some kind of success, some kind of happiness, don't be envious or jealous about it. Be happy for their happiness. Even if you don't agree with it. Even if you don't think they deserve it. Be happy for their happiness. It will set you free of the chains of the kidnapping, of the fire, of the poison, of all the other things that we've talked about today. If you practice that one practice, be happy for the happiness of others, even if you don't agree with it egotistically. Still, at least in that moment, that person is happy. At least they're deriving some small little joy in this very hard, difficult life. And in those windows of happiness, as small and tiny as they are for any of us, that is when the space exists that is palpable, the space for change, the space for growth, the space for peace. And you never know. Maybe that'll be their moment. Maybe it'll be yours. Any questions or reflections? We're good? Was that a no? We're good, Kathy went. On some level, that was very, very honest. No. And on another, it was funny. So thank you for that. So take away from today's session, don't be the poison. Be the antidote. Get in touch with your inner Richard Simmons. Dance a lot. Complain very little, if at all. Try to lessen your expectations. Find the joy in life. Because this life is not just suffering, it's joy. There's so much joy. But it's subjective. And it's subjective to the path that you are walking in particular. So I can't tell you exactly where to find it, except one place. There's one place that we can all find a great, great joy. And that's here, within the self. So if you seek that, humbly and sincerely, you'll find what you're looking for. We just got to get through the rest of it first. Let's sit tall. Close the eyes. Draw the hands together in front of the heart. And we'll lift our voices in one Om, followed by the All Beings mantra. Taking a breath in. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om.